Okay.
Okay, great.
Hi everybody, welcome to episode 52.
Yes.
Bad Creative Show. We're your hosts. I'm Richard. That's Morgan over there.
And I'm Josh.
Josh over here.
In female form.
Yeah, Josh isn't here today because he is sick and we wish him a speedy recovery.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that intro. Did you want to add anything else or was that it?
Over to you, Josh.
I looked over after we all did it and I was like, whoa.
I was like, oh.
So last week we did an episode which was 4 podcasting mistakes to avoid, which has done extremely well. Thank you so much, Mum, for downloading that about 14 times. I really appreciate it. And when we were researching that topic, we actually came across ABC's awesome survey that they did about podcasting, which they've been doing the last couple of years, especially because they've been putting a lot of funding towards it. So I just wanted to touch on some really interesting statistics, which I hope you guys don't fall asleep. So, well, like, it's just like trivia, you know?
Trivia.
Like, it's like trivia, but not. Like, if I call it stats, it's like, but if I say trivia, it makes it more interesting. So it's trivia. I've changed it to trivia. I'm going to post this.
Tuesday trivia.
Really, Tuesday trivia. I'm going to post this on the show notes so you guys can have a look for yourself. Oh yeah, we're not allowed to say guys. I was talking about this with you in the car before. You're not allowed to say guys anymore as like hey guys, what's up? Because apparently it's offensive in 2019. I'm not making light of it. It's something that I found out.
Can you say guys and gals?
But is gals offensive too? I don't know. Someone tell me how to live in 2019 because I don't know. Alright, so the awareness of podcasting has actually increased. This is for 2018 anyway, but it was published at the end of 2018, so whatever, it's still relevant. More than half of Australians aged 18 to 75 claim to have ever tried listening to podcasts, which is like a very broad age range, and it's interesting. I'm interested in this piece of trivia. Not a stat. Does anyone want to add anything to this? Any thoughts you found a little bit?
No, because it sounds like they've tried like cannabis or something. But anyway, keep going.
Go on.
No, I'm just saying.
Please, continue.
Please continue.
Tell me more.
Alright, so close to 3 in 5 podcast listeners claim to be listening to more podcasts this year, being 2018, compared to last. So that's kind of interesting. Only 5% claim to be listening less.
Why do you think that is though?
Maybe because it might be because it doesn't actually say. But it might be, they might be increasing based on the amount of topics that are now available or the amount of podcasts that are available, but decreasing maybe because they're like, well, podcasting isn't really something that is interesting to me and it's not really relevant. Like I tried it because everyone said it was cool, but now it's not cool, not relevant to me. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, I wasn't listening. I was checking out my fans that they're wearing really high. What was that again?
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Podcast listeners enjoy the freedom to pick audio content that interests them, informs them, and keeps them entertained.
That was podcast listeners.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's really interesting. The other thing to note was that it said that podcast listeners that use it to catch up on radio programs are mainly aged for people over 55. So, like, people on our demographic wouldn't really listen to radio catch-ups.
No way. No 80 to 60R for me.
That's funny though, because I mean, 3 years ago, my workmate, younger than me, used to listen to one of the popular radio stations' podcasts, just so he could listen to it at work rather than on the commute or something like that. I always thought that was.
Oh.
It's not how I did it.
Is this ABC?
No, it'd be one of the popular stations.
ABC is popular.
One of the young.
Ooh, the shade. Do you know, I used to listen to Drive with Russell Wolf or whatever every morning on ABC because my dad and I used to carpool together.
Yeah,
and I used to really like Russell Wolf. He's a cool man. So highlights in these, let me know. Do you guys think that this is interesting? Am I making this interesting?
No, yeah, very interesting.
Are you falling asleep?
No.
The next piece of trivia,
Yeah.
whatever. The next piece of trivia, at home remains the most common location for podcast listening.
Yep.
Which I find extremely interesting because I actually listen to podcasts driving more than at home, just because I'm at home, so that's when I talk with my husband and he interrupts me, so it's kind of annoying. But
I'm the opposite.
yeah?
Yeah. Podcast at home, always music in the car.
Interesting.
Yeah, because this jumped out at me as well when I flicked through it, because I'm exactly like you. I only listen to podcasts if I'm in the car, commuting to work, or I'm like doing something boring like painting a house or something.
Yeah.
But what medium, like, how do you listen at home? Do you have like a speaker or your headphones on?
No, I just play through my computer.
Your computer?
Yeah, just playing as background noise as I'm either working or...
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's weird because even upstairs, I listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
That is interesting actually, because I think there was another stat here saying that people don't listen to podcasts on smart speakers as much as smartphones. So it's like, so you're at home and you have would you just Bluetooth it or something like that to a speaker, like...
Oh, okay, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I mean, I just play it either straight off my TV
Oh, yeah.
or off my computer.
Cool.
And if I want to, and I'll play it off my phone if I want to listen to it.
Yeah.
It might just be that smart speakers are, not as common as phones at the moment.
Yeah,
If
true
I was
that.
at home, I would definitely play it through a speaker if I have one, but I haven't got one.
Yeah, I play it through my Sonos, which is cool, but I just find I still have this problem with the Sonos, which is like, obviously it doesn't Bluetooth.
Yeah.
It does it through the server, so yeah, you have to have like subscribe. And that's the thing that kind of annoys me, is you can't like pair, because obviously I have an Android, so I can't pair like my Android app with the Sonos app. So I have to like subscribe to the podcast on the app in Sonos, and then so I find it really annoying to, yeah, I don't know. Which
Fix
is
it.
why I don't really, I always listen, if I'm at home, I listen to it on my phone. Okay. The next piece of trivia is that the popularity of true crime podcasts has grown year on year, with 44% of podcast listeners claiming to have listened to a true crime podcast within the past month. So that being July 2018, up from 30% in 2017, which is, not really that... is it trivia? I don't know. There's so many true crime podcasts. One of my favourites was The Teacher's Pet. Have you listened to that?
No.
The Australian did that one. Very good. Very, very good.
I don't even know what true crime podcast is.
Well, Trace.
Trace was
Trace
great.
was great.
ABC, you got me on
prematurely finished because they needed more evidence.
Yeah, aren't they?
It's
They are. It
Yeah.
has been reopened. That case has been reopened. Really? You wouldn't listen to true crime podcasts?
I've never even heard of it until right now.
Not even
As a
Serial?
genre?
Serial was the thing that started it all.
No.
Now this is the trivia right here. I can't believe
Right.
he's never written. Oh my god.
Wait,
I'm a Joe Rogan type of...
You're
Yeah,
Joe
yeah, yeah.
Rogan.
Like, that's
That's cool.
pretty much it.
Yep.
That's good.
That's great. Good on you. I also recommend... I've got quite a few true crime podcasts. I can recommend some. Do you guys want me to read you
Please.
like some that I listen to?
We'll put them up to the screen.
I'll just
Next
tell
one.
you now. Okay, so obviously my favourite murder, everyone listens to that. That's really popular with women, so probably, yeah. Australian True Crime Podcast is fantastic. That one's really good. I really prefer that one because that isn't really so much of storytelling. It's more about, it goes beyond the crime that occurred, like beyond the news cycle. Interviews key people in crimes, and it's I don't know, there's something more interesting to me than actually talking about a horrible thing that happened as if it was a bedtime story.
Yeah.
So I actually really prefer the Australian True Crime because it actually does raise awareness with certain things that I never even thought to think of before, like what it's like to be thrown in jail for a non-violent crime, what it's like to be a criminologist and deal with like depression and all those kinds of things associated with that. So that's really interesting. Case File is actually a really good one. That one's a storytelling one. I feel like I'm just going forever. But I really love Case File because the host is anonymous and he's Australian. And so sometimes when he talks about really serious things, the Australian accent makes it somewhat humorous, but it's not meant to be. It's
What
kind
he's trying
of,
to
and
say
he's
about
like
this is-
really, like this, and you're like, whoa. But the storytelling is great. He actually gives, like the writers of the show, they actually give a lot of emphasis to the victims, which I think is fantastic because I think this whole telling a true crime, like it's a story for entertainment purposes, can be a bit, there's a bit of a grey area there.
Not Rob from Home Group WA, is it?
No, it
don't know.
kind of sounds like
Could be.
him.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway,
You do a really good Australian accent.
thank you. Yes, I recommend that.
Okay.
And carrying on with the trivia, comedy podcasts have also recorded year-on-year growth, particularly among males.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. Any comedy podcasts that you'd like to recommend?
I don't know the name of the podcast but it's Theo Von's podcast, Chris D'Elia's podcast. Joe Rogan's one, if you want to say comic, because he does have like
He does
comedian.
do comedy. He does comedy, yeah.
And
I do like Joe Rogan.
Bert Kreischer. Their podcasts are absolutely hilarious.
Like, laugh out loud hilarious?
Yeah.
Okay.
The only one I've ever listened to is My Brother and Me.
Yeah, you noted that in one of our posts that we did about...
Yeah, I think you had like feedback around the office, and that's just 3 American brothers who just go off on tangents and try to be serious.
Our show.
Yeah.
Interesting to note, 65% of females claim to listen to podcasts versus 51% of males, and I think that's driven a lot by the true crime podcasts, because apparently a lot of women listen to true crime podcasts.
Why is that?
Because we're afraid of being murdered
That's what I thought.
by men.
That's
Sorry guys,
kind of
got me
freaky.
up.
Yeah.
But was I telling you, I was watching Forensic Files over the Christmas break, and every episode was like,
Yeah.
this woman was murdered because she said no to a guy.
Oh,
It was
nice.
like every single episode. It's pretty scary. Anyway,
She said no to a guy and got murdered.
yeah, pretty much. And you're like, great, I can't even like say no to a guy without getting murdered. We're gonna add some comedy podcasts there. Bring up the mood of the room.
Yeah, nothing about death and women getting murdered.
Men, yeah.
So Chris D'Elia's is the Congratulations podcast. That's the name of it.
Yep.
And then Theo Vaughn's podcast.
He's searching and
Yeah, The Past Weekend.
okay.
And they just get other comedians on and they just talk
Mhm.
absolute smack for about an hour. But it's really funny.
I love talking smack. This piece of trivia I found really interesting. I highlighted it. You can't see it because you have terrible vision. But it's 48 minutes is the average time spent listening to a podcast episode, which has stayed the same in 2017 as well. People will listen, they commit beyond the first 5 minutes, and which is, you know, I'm interested to know that there's 48 minutes and to see what, you know, would happen to podcasts that go longer than that.
Is it like, but are they actually engaging with the podcast, or like are they? Because I know from experience that you got to really grab my attention within 5 minutes, like 5-10 minutes. If I'm bored, I could leave it as like just background noise, like I won't fully be absorbing the podcast. It's like as if I'm just someone's talking to me kind of thing, or I'll just switch it off and change podcast. So it's interesting to know like the substance behind the 48 minutes.
Well,
yeah.
So this says this is 48 minutes for people who committed past the first 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So it's saying, it's kind of like when you're looking at Facebook video play stats and stuff like that. It's like, all right, these are the people who are interested. How long did they go for? But you bring up an interesting point, because I'm sure somewhere else in here, that there are stats there saying basically people listen to the end, right? So I think this is more just saying this is like the average length of a show. More than anything.
I think that's kind of interesting to, I mean, it's a good guide if you're wondering, how long should my podcast episode be? Well, this is the average, 48 minutes. I mean, but I also think, I do wonder how much of this data is inspired by a lot of those true crime podcasts, because the storytelling nature of it, it does tend to go for more than half an hour. It does go for about an hour or so. And if more females listen to podcasts than males, and if more females listen to true crime podcasts, that might be the reason why. Because it'd be interesting to note how many... So like our podcast is a digital marketing podcast, and like what are the stats of the average listening time for digital marketing podcasts? I don't know.
Opposed to something else.
Out of you use 3 other people in the room here, Josh and Morgs.
And Rich.
Have you guys, like, how often would you stop listening to a podcast halfway through it or before it gets to the end?
Not often.
I don't think I ever have.
The only reason
you've listened to it in its entirety.
Once because there's lots on my kind of short list that I don't actually end up listening to because I go for the one I want to listen to, but I don't remember the last time I ever went, you know what, you're boring me, get out of here.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do that pretty often.
Okay.
Yeah, so like opposed to like, so one of Joe Rogan's recent ones with Travis Barker, I watched that from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because I'm like a Blink-182 fan, like Travis Barker fan. When what he was saying actually was amazing, like his story, like everything behind it was awesome. And then there's other ones where, say the one before it or something, it just bored me. Like I just, I couldn't like. this has no relevance to me.
Alright.
I'm not gonna.
It's like whoever the guest is.
Yeah,
kind of,
yeah. Like it's like it's kind of interesting, but it's not enough for me to want to continue watching.
Alright.
I'd rather watch an older one or something
Mhm.
and watch it again.
Actually,
So-
yeah. Okay, so that's more like the 5 minutes, like test. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna just basically commit to it or not
Mm.
in the first 5 minutes. It's quite interesting because I'd really love to hear from our listeners if when we get to that bit where we all start going off the rails,
Which is probably now.
which is every time, but
We
it's
fell over.
it's always about the halfway point or whatever, whether or not they just skip. Because I don't think, I mean, on my iPhone, like the option to skip is like 15-second intervals.
Yeah.
So I don't know, you'd actually have to unlock your phone and go, no, I want something else. So it's probably not as easy as skipping a song.
Mm. Yeah, actually, there was a really interesting Joe Rogan podcast because I too I don't listen to every episode, depends on who's on
Yeah.
and what the topic is, but there was a really interesting episode with Billy Corgan.
Oh yeah.
And
Wow.
he is so great at storytelling. Like, he's just so detailed, and the way he talks about things is just so interesting. I ended up watching the entire thing, but I tend not to watch all of
But
his stuff.
he's go for like 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
2
it's
to
a
3
long
hours.
time. It's a commitment.
That's a commitment. That's an afternoon.
Yeah, but I recommend the Billy Corgan one. And there's also Henry Rollins. He
Henry
was also a
Rollins,
very
yeah.
good storyteller. Sorry, he's great. But there's one with Dr. Rhonda. I can't remember.
Oh, Patrick.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Yeah.
But because she's not really like a storyteller, she's more about the sharing information. I'm like, that's not really relevant to me. I'll skip this or whatever. So I do think it's kind of about that storytelling.
Aspect of it.
Yeah.
And if it's a good flowing podcast as well, like with the Travis Barker one, you could tell like it would just be a cut off, and then Joe Rogan would have to like kick back up with something like
Right.
when after
Right.
talking about like his journey through life, and then he's like, Travis Barker, yeah. And Joe, you got too many tattoos, man. You're running out of spots to get tattooed.
He's good like that, hey.
Like,
He's-
then there's just a new topic that they roll into, like to keep that going. I was like, oh.
He's great. Okay, I think this is maybe where I stopped highlighting stuff, so just bear with me while I flick through, because then, why do you, what?
1 in 5, listen with others. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, because I think a lot of it's to do with, so 1 in 5 people listen to podcasts with others, and I think a lot of it's to do with I want to listen to what I want to listen to. Like, I'm not really a fan when someone's like, listen to this episode right now with me, and I'm like, but I want to do other things. Which makes me wonder what people were like in the 50s when like radio programs would come on, and then they'd all have to sit together like a family and like all listen to the same thing. I don't know. But because that does go back to, I think they talk about why do people like listening to podcasts. 80% say to choose content that I'm interested in. So I think that's why it would be 1 in 5. And I think we did actually talk about this last year too. The reasons why people like listening to podcasts: to learn new things, to inform me, to entertain me, to listen to audio when I want and where I want. So I think that's pretty much has been the same, because the last time it was to choose content that I'm interested in, as to why people actually like listening to podcasts. So, smartphone use is increasing. Apple is predominantly is ruling podcasts, as we know. It would be interesting to know. So there's been a slight increase in Android ownership, which might be because of their app, but I still don't think it's as good as Apple's app. That was pretty much it. Oh, this is what I saw, which is something I told you, another piece of trivia. A variety of reasons what motivates listeners to try new podcasts. The episode description, massive, 73%. A recommendation, 72%. Which makes sense, because one of the episodes that we talked about, Google's new podcasting strategy, they actually talk about the fact that Apple Podcast doesn't really do much for like making recommendations and things like that. Was if Google Podcasts are doing the whole like, you may also be interested in. So yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if that would actually drop. 50% is the host. So everybody, get your podcast voices happening. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome.
Does anyone have any thoughts, feelings, outrageousness about that? 39% said they listen while they're falling asleep in bed. I've done that.
I've done that. I put headphones on and just
Yep.
There's a sleep timer or something, right, on the app?
No.
No?
just
Just fall asleep. Just let them go
play
through
out.
episodes. I love waking up and I'm like, how many episodes did I listen to while I was
Yeah.
sleeping? 6 or whatever.
It's one of that you just try to think it's, you're subliminally like learning as
Yeah.
you're sleeping.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's more like a noise thing as well, like to help
Yeah.
try
Like
and
a
fall
soothing
asleep.
thing because we're
Yeah.
just big babies, adult babies. 59% say household or garden chores. That's when I listen to
Yeah.
podcasts.
Yeah.
So that's it. I also 39% say exercising.
Exercising.
I don't listen to
No.
podcasts while exercising. I can't focus.
Right. Okay.
That's all.
I find that even with sometimes working, I can't focus if I'm listening to a podcast
Mm-hmm.
because I'm just getting too distracted by
Yeah.
what they're saying. I'm like interested in
Wow.
learning. I'm
Yes.
like, oh really? Like,
Yeah, podcasts are good for like treadmill,
yeah.
but not good for like weight lifting. It's quite dangerous.
So I gotta like switch between like, okay, I need a break, listen to some music, get some, and then keep rotating back and forth.
Yeah. So thanks for listening, everybody. What's your article? I'm dying to know. If you say it's so good, is it like actually good or is it rich good?
It's better than Rich Good.
Oh no, it's
So
bad.
what's the next level up?
Just
from
It's
Richmond?
a good scale.
We can only.
You ready?
We have
You
reached
ready?
the peaks. Okay, what is this?
It is not the Galaxy Fold.
It looks pretty schmicko.
Have you guys heard of?
Six cameras?
Have you guys heard of
It
zombie?
has 6 cameras.
Have you guys heard of zombie deer disease?
No.
All right.
No.
I hadn't either. All right. Zombie deer disease has impacted wildlife in 24 states in the US. It's a fatal disease that affects the brains and spinal cord of deer, elk, and moose. All right. The symptoms are the infected animals stumble around, drool, and get aggressive towards humans.
Do they eat brains?
Once
Legit
infected,
question.
they lose weight and become listless, among other strange behaviours. It's impossible for hunters to tell when they have this thing. The spookiest thing is that apparently humans can catch it, maybe.
Oh come on! I only want.
Is this a scam?
I want to guarantee that we can catch it. Otherwise, I'm not interested.
And no vaccines or treatments are available at this time.
Oh my god! This is the zombie. See, 28 days later. Was it 28
Yeah.
days later where it started with animals or
Yeah.
something?
Yes. Was it monkeys?
Yeah, the rage virus. That's right. It started with monkeys. You're right. So they were kind of correct. It's
Yeah.
starting with elk.
So it's possible the number of human. It's probable that human cases of chronic wasting disease associated with the consumption of contaminated meat will be documented in the years ahead. How's that for pretty vague?
And why did you think this was a good article
Because
to share with us?
we always like talking about zombies, and
That's
now it's
true.
happening in real life.
That is true. We have spent a lot of episodes talking about zombies.
So,
I don't see why we never have.
But Jess is like, I want it to be legit. I want there to be like a zombie apocalypse.
No, it's happening. So it's good news, Jess. There you go.
Speaking of podcasts and even Netflix, have you guys seen Dirty John? That's on Netflix
Oh,
right now.
I've heard good stories.
Right, so if you listen to the podcast is actually
A Dirty John.
Dirty John podcast. So that's why they made the show, because the podcast was like a phenomenon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so listen to the podcast. It is fantastic. I won't spoil it for you. But one of the, I can't say characters because it's real people, but one of the girls in it is actually massively obsessed with The Walking Dead, which actually played a humongous, like a very significant part in the climax of that story, or that
Dun, dun.
thing that happened. So yeah, listen to Dirty John. Don't watch the show.
I have one question about the show.
Okay.
Does Eric Bana do a really bad American accent in it?
No, Eric Bana does a fantastic American accent. He's actually very good at American accents.
terrible.
There's
You played a horrible Hulk.
there's a few moments where like there's a little pointer.
Bit
Like
of
I can
Rayman.
hear like a little I can hear a little something something. But he actually does a
A little
very
what?
good American
Oh, really?
A
accent.
little what? Something.
Something.
You haven't seen Pointer?
Full frontal pointer. Oh my god, mate, pointer! Oh, YouTube it. We'll find it for you.
Yeah.
Pointer. There's like this
Send me the
Bergen
link.
pointer.
It's not Pointer.
Pointer.
It's Pointer.
Peter, like Peter.
Oh, Peter.
Pointer. Yeah, but you know what? It's so funny because
Ooh.
like I grew up watching Full
That's the
Frontal,
highlight of my
or
week.
Fast Forward as it used to be called, and so Eric Bana was like really funny, and then like to see
It's pretty
him
funny.
become this like Hollywood
Yeah.
actor, and he's like supposed to be attractive. I'm like, no, but it's Pointer. Like Pointer.
My favourite was actually David McGann's World Around Us. So Sean McAuliffe as the nature
Oh, Sean
documentary guy.
McAuliffe
He was
is
so good.
Bloody amazing.
I think this is way before my time.
Oh,
Yes, it probably
you're not
was,
even
Junior.
that much younger than I am.
Still
What's your
before,
excuse?
still before my time.
Do you have any further questions about Dirty John? that you'd like to ask?
No, I have no more questions about the zombie apocalypse. It's fine.
No,
Or
Dirty John.
I know.
Do listen to Dirty John. If
Oh.
you can find the article, it's fantastic. It's actually based off a LA Times article, and then the writer turned it into a podcast, and actually, like, yeah, it's just really well done. They've really created fantastic storytelling, and I do think it's quite sad actually watching the show. I was really excited for the show, and then watching it, I was actually disappointed at how I just didn't think it was as good as the podcast. And I wonder if it's because when you listen to things, you can see things in your mind's eye, and they just don't really compare to someone else's kind of visual interpretation of the events.
Oh, that's really interesting. So is it kind of like the book doesn't, like the book goes into more detail because you can't, there's no narrator unless it's, you know, badly done kind of Hollywood kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you get a more vivid impression of what's going on, and you get people's feelings and that sort of thing that you can't get. That's cool.
It's like how, remember that episode where I was talking about I Am Legend?
Yeah.
And I went on this like tangent for 10 minutes about how I hated the Will Smith film, because the book's actually, the story's really amazing.
Yeah,
Read I Am Legend if you can. It's just the most amazing book. I really enjoyed it. I did not enjoy the film. And I was sad when the dog died. And it's not a spoiler because that film has been out for like 30 years now, so however. I don't know how old it is.
I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't seen I Am Legend?
Yeah.
Don't watch it. It's terrible and I don't like it. Does anyone else have any further questions about Dirty John, Eric Bana, Poida, Sean McAuliffe? I actually don't know who met Sean McAuliffe.
No, because I would actually watch all of it.
We'll find some on YouTube for you. Thank you. Is there anything else you want?
I don't have anything else.
That's it. Oh well, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching, listening.
And we're on 40 minutes. That's a wrap.
Oh wait, we need to be 48 minutes.
40 minutes.
What is? Somebody dance for 8 more minutes. No, I don't know.
No, we're not even on 34
We're not
minutes.
even.
And that's including 10 minutes of, what is it? Talking smack?
Thanks so much, Mum, for listening to me again.
Sorry
I'll call
about
you later.
Thanks, Jess's mum.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.